Welcome everybody, thank you for coming. Maybe you wonder a bit why I'm going to talk about a feature of last year's Magnolia release. The reason is that I find it maybe the most underrated feature of Magnolia, and one of the reasons is that it's not immediately obvious what the potential is of that feature, and also it's a bit complex at the first sight. But that's what this talk is about, understanding the potential and the possibilities that come with those concepts of Magnolia personalization. So in the end, it's much more than page variations. Just a few words about me. I come from a software engineering background and joined Aperto in 2010. And since then, I worked as a technical architect for Aperto, and I had the chance to participate in a lot of interesting projects, and some of them were really exciting and very demanding. These are just two examples. One of them is the municipality of Canton Basel-Stadt. So if you go to basel.ch or bs.ch, I took part in that project, and it runs on Magnolia. That was too quick. Okay, please allow me a few words on the company I work for, and that in the end allows me to be here today. We have a number of offices around the world, but our base is in Berlin. And I'd like to take the chance to say hello to our team in Saigon at this point, because they implemented a proof of concept that I'm going to demo later on. So thanks and hello to Cham and Koa and also Ngu and Dirk. And yeah, so much for our offices. A few more insights into the company. This is Aperto by day, and this is Aperto by night, at least the building. Okay. On to our relationship with Magnolia. We're a partner of the first day, if you want. And we implemented a good number of Magnolia projects since 2006. And we also do a bit of joint product development with Magnolia. So for example, we contributed quite a bit to the standard templating kit. Back then, it's a number of years ago. But we are very active in the Magnolia community with bug reports and patches and conference talks. Okay, let's get to the subject of this talk, which is personalization. And I would like to step back a little and talk about personalization in general. So what is it and what can we achieve with it? So this is not going to be too technical at the first. So what it's about, if you think about it, if you think about the visitors of your site, they aren't all the same, of course. And the question is a bit obvious. Why should they all see the same content? In the end, it's not like your site is not like a newspaper or a book where everybody must get the same copy. And it's easy to imagine that your site will get more interesting when the content is selected somehow specifically to the visitor that currently looks at your site. And there's a good number of positive effects that you can achieve with this. And it really depends on what you want to do, or what you want to achieve with your site, what your goals are. So what you can say probably in general, and which is probably always true, is that you can make your content more relevant to the users, and that they will engage more with your website, and that's probably independent of what you want to achieve with your website. If you've got some monetization scheme with your website, be it that you show adverts or that you do actually sell something on your website, or want to bring product information to your visitors, then there is a number of points that you can improve using personalization. for example, KPIs like time spent on your website or the views per session. These will increase if the content is simply more relevant to the user. And you can do things like upselling and cross-selling if you really want to sell something on your website or if you want to simply show product information. And these use cases of upselling and cross-selling, they really depend on the information you have of the visitor, and they get, of course, much better if you, for example, connect it to sales data that you have about the visitor. If you have a login area or something like that, then you may know, okay, for example, if you're a health insurance company or an insurance company, and you know that this visitor has this kind of contract, then you would be able to display a teaser that shows the next higher tariff that he might be interested in. Or cross-selling, if you know that this visitor does not yet have something like a dental insurance, then you could show him the dental insurance. So what you require for personalization and what makes it more useful for you is the more information you have about the visitor. This could come from more or less any source of information you have about the visitor, and these could be multiple sources at the same time. So you could connect to your back office data, but maybe you also allow a Facebook login, or you do some kind of tracking that you will use for personalization. And whatever it is, you need to surface it in Magnolia. You need to kind of plug it in, your data source about your visitors. And that's done using so-called custom traits. And we will get back to that later on. This requires some custom programming. But let's stick for a minute to possible sources of information you could have about your visitors. This could be a login area, simply where users fill in a user profile, and every field they fill in there may become valuable for you in personalization use cases. You could have a customer relationship management system somewhere, and you could combine it with your login area, so you've got your back office information about the visitor. You could connect some kind of behavioral targeting provider to your system, and that essentially means that some external system does guesses based on probabilities and using cookies about things like your visitor has a probability of maybe 60% that he's a female or male, and that may already be useful to show more relevant information. But you could also do your own tracking on your site. I will get back to that later on. Or you provide a social login, for example, Facebook or Google+. And that then, of course, depends on what information the user allows you to retrieve from their profile. Especially in cases of e-commerce where you want to actually sell something, I think the neutral word for that is conversion rate on your website. And when you do things like tracking user behavior or try to get some information about the user to be able to recommend more suitable products for them, then I like to see the same thing in real life, which would be that you simply go to a shop and talk to a shop assistant. And guess what? Of course, he will look at you and he will try to make guesses what could be the right product for you, telling from your age, your gender, your class, etc. And very likely a shop assistant will in the end know more about you than any predictive behavioral targeting provider will ever do. Okay. What's interesting, for example, for banking or insurances is to connect Magnolia with back office data. So as I already mentioned, so you're able to recommend products for cross or upselling. And for other businesses, this could mean, just recommendable information that you want to show to the user, that you want the user to know because you know certain things about him. And that could, for example, be a health insurance that wants to recommend specific prevention courses to keep up their health, which is, of course, something health insurances are interested in. And this could be based on age or gender. So if you know this basic information, if you only know that, age or gender, then a health insurance will immediately be able to show you very important information. Important for you and important for them. And if you run a business that has something like a service center, a call center, and you connect Magnolia with the sales data, then you may know what product he owns, and there may be some problem or something the user should know about the product, because otherwise they will sooner or later call in the call center. Then you may reduce costs in your call center just by displaying this specific information for that product that he owns. Okay, these are really use cases where it's about reducing costs, but it could be other use cases, of course. If you have, for example, a cultural news site which is publicly funded or something like that, you just could make your news site more interesting to the visitor. It's interesting to see the relationship between online services and the possibilities of personalization. So if you think about, for example, cross or upselling, that could mean money that you could suddenly gain from your online platform. And maybe you do already have online services, then it makes sense to connect the login, of course. And your online services that you may already have, they could mean something like a treasure, because you've got this trove of information about the users that you did not yet use for conversion, for example, or other purposes that you may want to achieve. And if you think about it, then maybe it turns out that the gains from personalization will pay off so much that you can invest in online services, which in turn deliver the data that is required for increasing your conversion rate. So you may end up with a win-win situation. The site gains value for the customer because he now has these nice online services. You get the user data, and so you can follow your purposes with the personalization features. So the user data that you may gain from online services that you extend or create, this may fuel your conversion rates. Okay, personalization in Magnolia so far mostly means that you target editorial content that you maintain within Magnolia itself. Already, without using any of the personalization features of Magnolia, you could do some kind of personalization if you've got some custom logic that, based on user data, retrieves data from an external source. That's personalization as well, but this is not really what this talk is about. So this is not about content residing outside of Magnolia, but we're really getting closer to the personalization features of Magnolia. One important thing to mention is, or let's call it an abstract concept, which is segmentation, which is, I think, a term from online marketing. Of course, you cannot target each user absolutely individually, because then you would have something like a one-to-one relationship between editors and visitors of your site. So, of course, you've got to identify groups of users, which are called segments in online marketing. And users within the same segment, they will receive the same content. And it's absolutely depending on your business and your kind of website, what strategies you should follow for creating those segments and creating rules that put users into segments. So that's absolutely up to you. All right. Having touched a bit on personalization in general, this is getting a bit more technical now. This is not the business track after all. This is a list of key concepts that Magnolia provides for personalization. This is a bit much for this moment. I will get into detail on these. Maybe for the moment it's more interesting to look at this diagram from Magnolia themselves, where you can see already 3 of the key concepts. And we already saw the segments. This is how you divide your visitor base. And essentially segments, they define rules that are related to traits of your users. So the traits, this is what you know about your user. This is could be the registration profile or attributes of a Facebook login, or it could be the current date, as we will see later on, which is not really a trait of the user, but can be useful as well. And within Magnolia, you maintain content variants. And in the end, Magnolia will deliver a certain variant to a certain segment. Let's simplify this for a moment, because it's a bit more complicated than that. What's missing in the diagram is the personas, for example. We will get to that later on. Personas are essentially used for testing and for previewing the results of your personalization. And I mentioned the rules. You can have rules in here, but you can also put them ad hoc here on the content variants. But that's just a minor technical detail if you want. Okay, so I mentioned traits a lot already. By the way, if you get the slides later on online as a PDF version or on SlideShare, I don't know. If you click on links like these will take you to the Magnolia demo system, where you will then immediately see this exact configuration, in case you're interested. This is a trait definition. That looks very technical already. Every module in Magnolia can provide their own traits. And where is it? Doesn't work. Okay, so this is one module, and within the module you've got a folder called traits, and in there you will find the traits that your module defines. So here we look at a trait called date. And all the traits that you have in your system is essentially the collection of all traits defined in all modules of your running Magnolia. So it's imaginable that you, at some point, get a third-party module that provides some traits. So it doesn't exist yet, but I can imagine that sooner or later somebody will open source a Magnolia module that will provide traits for Facebook profile attributes. So it's easier for you to integrate without much custom programming. Hopefully this will happen. And what you see in the screenshot here is 3 traits that Magnolia delivers out of the box. So this is what you get when you start a vanilla Magnolia, and you can already use these. I already mentioned the date trait. It's not really a trait of the visitor. It's actually the current date, but it's useful anyway. And there are 2 more. And things start to get really interesting only if you define your own custom traits, because these 3 are really just sample traits that you could use. I already mentioned the rules. Within your trait definition, there was something called what was it called? A rule field. And the rule field defines that, for example, for the date, you have two input fields when you enter a rule, a start date and an end date, and that's a range, of course. And within one rule, you can combine multiple traits. So this would be Christmas time in Switzerland. At least that's what it's supposed to be. Let's get to segments. Segments essentially are just giving a name to a rule set. If you have questions, please don't hesitate, because it's a bit complicated, but it's really worth it. That's what I think after having worked with Magnolia Personalization for a while. It's kind of complex if you look at it for the first time, but if you spend some time with it and get familiar with it, it's really, really worthwhile. And the segments are maintained in the Segments app. Where is it? There they are. So segments are maintained in a separate app. So this could be things like, things you want to define once and then reuse in several places. For example, economic reasons. You don't want to redefine what EMEA is or Asia Pacific for each page that you want to target. So you would put the rule in here, and it's called a segment then, and you can just reference the segment in the places where you want to target your content. Okay, out of the box, Magnolia allows you to target page variants. That's currently the only thing that you can target at the moment. So for each page, you can define several audiences, and effectively you create variants of the page. And I'm not going to show that; it's going to get complicated. What you see here in the screenshot is page variants targeted to the different economic regions you have. That was by using the segments that were shown earlier. And what page variants effectively do is create copies of your pages. Here you can see the target audience. When you create a page variant, then you can choose the audience, and there you can either select a segment or add additional, let's call it ad hoc rules. Now, once you set this all up, you've got your rules, you've got your page variants, you've got your segments. Now, what you can do to preview the result is using the personas. And personas actually are sample traits. It's a sample person, and Magnolia will show you what this person would see. So this person has certain characteristics. It could come from a certain country, for example, and then Magnolia will show you what the result is. And within the Personas app, you can also where is it? Let's go to it. Well, it's not the Personas app I'm going to show. This is going to be preview as visitor. And this will show you the page for a certain person. And if you defined already certain personas, that's what they're called, like a female user from Switzerland, for example, then you will receive the result for that particular user. When you define a persona, this is a bit different from defining rules, because rules could give a range, and a persona only has a single value in that case. So, for example, a date would be a certain date in the year and not a range, because you're previewing for a single visitor. That's all nice, but what you really need for your system will be custom traits. And that's what's required when you want to connect Magnolia Personalization to your user data. And maybe over time there will be third-party modules that do that for you. If that doesn't exist, then you need to develop it. It's a bit complex at first sight, even more complex than from the user perspective. But if you look at the at the positive effects that you can achieve, then I think one should think about it for certain kinds of websites. There is very good documentation in the Magnolia wiki. I can really recommend it. And let's have a look at the previous trait definition that we already saw. So what does it all mean? Right now, I will focus on the definition fields, on the definition parts that are related to user interface elements. So the trait class is what the actual data is that your trait has. For example, the date, just the date of the year. And you've got your rule field, and we defined it to allow a date range. And that's custom programming to define what is allowed here. You could make it 3 input fields or 4 or whatever you want. And you've got the value field, and that defines how you can input a sample value in the Persona app when you want to preview your personalization. Then there's a few more options which are used when you've got some trait that is often used. I think it's very elaborated, so you can make life easier for your editors by placing certain traits in places where they are easy to use. Let's take a little look under the hood. One more thing that's not related at all to the user interface is the voter class, and that one decides does a single value match a rule. That's the voter class. And then technically needed also is the converter class, which is needed for previewing, preview as visitor. Now, how is the trait then detected? How does Magnolia know what your, for example, your age is if we've got a user profile where the age is as a field? And that happens in a specialized request filter class. And the result is put in something called the trait collector, which is very central. And okay, how does it work together? I hope you enjoyed the silly picture. So this is as a service for developers, if you want. This is how it works. There is a request filter going on here. It adds the particular trait to the trait collector, and then later on some other filter kicks in and retrieves the trait from the trait collector. And the trait collector is accessible as an ejectable object, so anywhere you can obtain your trait collector. Okay, this is for the techies in the audience. What's interesting about this, not only for techies, is that trait detection and evaluation are decoupled, and that means that you can test your personalized results without trait detection working. So if you've got a number of systems that you want to connect to, it's not necessary to have these connections all working. You can still test your personalized results because Magnolia allows you to simulate traits and trait values for personas. So that can make life easier during the development process of the project, where you can decouple things because you can test one thing before the other thing is done. And what makes this even more interesting from my point of view is that you cannot use it only for page variants, but you can do a lot more things with it. And I think these concepts are very well designed because they give a lot of flexibility to implement your own use cases. So for example, you could track the user, and you can in particular track the categories that he was so far visiting on your site by using a persistent cookie. And then you could build a component that will display an automated list of news articles or whatever you have that fall within these categories that the user obviously previously was interested in. So this is personalization without any targeting of page variants, but it's still personalization, and it uses the features, the key features of personalization in Magnolia. And most of all, one of the important features here is the preview as visitor, because it makes it very, very easy for you to test the results. You don't have to, I don't know, click a lot around to find out whether the targeted results looks correct. You just simulate in the Preview as Visitor app the favorite categories of the user. And another use case that we did in a customer proof of concept was to use personalization on whole pages, which is not page variants, but the whole page. It's a bit like access rights on pages, but you define the access rights using rules and segments and stuff like that. And this only really works if the navigation adapts to that as well. So if you got, for example, different kinds of customer accounts, and one kind of customer account is supposed to see this page, but the others don't, then you can do it with this feature, well, which requires custom programming. But all we had to do is create a filter for hiding pages that don't match the current visitor, and also adapt the navigation logic so it does not show you any entries that you're not allowed to navigate to anyway. They really wanted that, and it made a lot of sense for them, and it was really easy to do, and it works without any page variants. Okay. I mentioned earlier that currently only pages can be targeted out of the box with Magnolia. So what you have to do is take a page, create variants, and this will effectively copy the page, and each copy you can target individually. But obviously that may result in a lot of editorial work for all those copies you've got to maintain now. And the logical next step would be to apply targeting on a component level. And I talked to Philip Barfuß about this, and he was positive that this could end up on the roadmap for Magnolia 5.5. So take it with a grain of salt. I cannot speak for Magnolia here, of course. And what we did was, in the meantime, to implement a proof of concept that demonstrates that this is definitely possible. And it took us some custom development. From a user interface perspective point of view, there is a new so-called component box, and within the component box you will see tabs, and both the component box and the tabs, you won't see them in the result, they are just there for editing, and each tab you can then target to the desired audience, and you can, as you can with pages currently in Magnolia, you can assign traits and segments directly. So this is the component box, and these are the tabs. And the tab will display the target audience. So for example, this one is targeted to users from the city of New York. And we can easily preview this and see the results in the Preview as Visitor app. Easily, if you're not standing in front of a big screen. Where am I? Okay, next time I will have a better computer to do this. So somewhere here we've got the city, and if we select that one, then we should see the right tab. Let's select a different one. I hope something else was configured. Is it different? Yeah, it's different. Okay. So that works. And we heard from customers that they are really very interested in this, and that they're kind of eagerly waiting for Magnolia to add this feature to their personalization. And we also hope for it. And okay, you can assign your segments and rules per component, it means it's no longer necessary to maintain duplicate content. And you can use the same content page for all your audiences. And the preview as visitor works really as expected. Okay, a bit on the technical side of things, how we did it. For those who are interested in JCR structures, we've got the component box is just a component and it contains an area. And the area contains component box items. And where it gets interesting is that we have two more attributes here, which is the variant title, which is what the tab displayed as the target audience. And we store the Magnolia rule set in the very same way as Magnolia does it. And we're effectively reusing their dialog to do it. There exists a configuration for the called tab audience, and we are simply extending that one for storing this rules information. Same way as Magnolia does it, and I hope that Magnolia and Aperto will collaborate a bit on this, on how the future storage structure will look like. So if we implement this in a customer project, then hopefully in the future will not be necessary to migrate data or something like that. What's interesting is that, and Magnolia does it themselves, there is content stored which is then deserialized using content to bean. Although it's coming from the website, normally it's only coming from the configuration workspace. And the rendering side of things isn't complicated at all. So we've got a model for the area that contains the targeted components, and that one determines which one is the matching component. And I must say, it was easy to implement because the personalization foundation, if you wish, of Magnolia is so well designed. And then within the component box items, we've got to decide, does it get rendered or not? So we check it, and if not, we just return skip rendering so that the component is not rendered if it's not the one that was elected by the parent area. Okay.